Well, hello there and welcome. My name is Ber-Henda Williams, and I'm a media producer. I am a cultural strategist and soft power formation guide. And everything that I do is rooted in a womanist praxis because I believe that truly womanist praxis lead us to empathic feminine leadership for an emerging world. And I want to speak very specifically today about the presence. What does God look like in the valley? So, in our world, right, we are often celebrated for when we arrive at the mountaintop. And most people think that that's where the purpose is at the mountaintop. But truly, it's revealed in the valley. The breakthrough moments happen in the valley, they happen in process on the road somewhere. And so, I want us to pause, and quite honestly, think about your own life and your life's history, your work trajectory. Most real formation happens in the valley. It's the coming through on the other side. Even the word alignment, we hear that word so much moving around in our lexicon, getting into alignment, getting into alignment. Getting into alignment, that in and of itself is a process. If you've ever dislocated your knee or fractured or broken something, the cast or the spring, when it is bound together, right, that brings it back into alignment. It's a painful process. And so I don't want to sugarcoat or glamorize alignment. The truth of the matter is that alignment really truly is a process, and it's when we are out of alignment, awareness has to come that something is off, something is amiss, right? There's something on the inner part of our faculty. We feel it in our guts, we can feel it in our heart. For those of us who are more empathic, highly sensitive, intuitive, we will see manifestations perhaps in our dreams, and we pay attention to signs in our waking hours that are key indicators to us that something is out of alignment. And then we are ushered through a valley. Well, what is the valley? So glad that you asked that. The valley is where things are unfinished, the messy middle. The work is happening way before outcomes are even visible. When we think about planting, we don't want to dig up a seed before it's had time to gestate. And in the valley, clarity isn't fully formed yet. And so, what I want to offer is a bit of a cultural critique here. Modern spirituality or modern spiritual culture says that difficulty means misalignment. If something is hard, something must be wrong. And on the surface, that could seem harmless, but we also have to account for individuals' very real lived experiences. We're talking about systemic oppressions that exist depending on what body you inhabit. So we're talking about ageism, ableism, sexism, homophobia, xenophobia, blatant and ardent racism, right? So when things are hard, it is not a personal or moral failure. We're also talking about shifting culture, which is an agreed upon shared belief and value system. And so if we say things like we want to create a world that works for everyone, that works for all, we are acknowledging that in many ways it does not. So I want to give y'all a bit of a mm, teaching of tradition, at least my tradition, and I want to give you all a bit of a theological framing. So wherever you are on that spectrum, I believe something here is going to apply to you. Um, I want to name this. God is not more present in outcomes than in process. Actually, the contrary. You will see God with us in both, but you will definitely see and feel God's presence when you're in deeper process. And what I mean by that is there's always a ram in the bush. There is always signs and wonders as you're in process. And we've seen this time and again, especially in our folklore and mythologies, is that when our hero or heroine is on the quest for the treasure, the truth, for, saving humanity from some impending doom, there are always breadcrumbs and there's always support available as that arduous journey is being taken. And so the valley is not punishment. The valley is not a failure. The valley, the valley is a classroom. The valley is where depends faith deepens. It is where leadership is refined and it matures, and love becomes infrastructure and not solely sentimentality. And so here's some leadership insights that I want to share with you. If you study like the real leaders, the ones who have created a cultural shift, movement builders, here's what's apparent. Most were formed when outcomes were not guaranteed. They built anyway, not because things were certain, but because they got tired, taxed mentally, spiritually, emotionally of the current conditions. And they dared bravely and many times under resourced. But their work was grounded in something so much deeper. And so when we look at the road to Damascus, right? When we look at Saul traveling to Damascus, he believes he's defending his faith, right? He's so righteous. But then a light interrupts him on the road and he hears about being persecuted. Or why is he persecuting, those who believe? Now, I want to also name very clearly here persecution, period. When we persecute others, whether it's on the basis of faith, on the basis of orientation, on the basis of just identity that is other, we have already committed a moral failure. In this instance, there's a temporary blindness, being led into the city and has to wait 3 days without sight. So transformation begins during disruption. And so the key takeaway or insight that I want to share with you all and leave you with is this. Transformation did not happen at the destination. It happened on the road. Many of you who are listening to the sound of my voice are on a road. You are on a pathway, and you may feel like you have been stuck in a wilderness. You may have been stuck in a desert without food, shelter, water. You might even feel a bit delirious at this point because the end feels like it is not near. And this is where probably most leaders don't get to this part because it requires surrender. And we are taught in our Western culture that we persevere, we fight nature, we fight anything that presents an opposition to us. And that is detrimental. It is detrimental to your nervous system, your physical and emotional health. But if you pause for a moment, take rest, take refuge, pay attention to the support that is given to you on the road, on the way. Could be the form of an email, a text message, you reaching out to a friend, or being really radically honest about where you are. Support will come. And so I want to leave you with this. I've been really allowing spirit to speak to me. And it typically comes through Black cultural traditions. And in the Black cultural tradition, we understand the valley. Because, baby, Black folks have been in the valley. We understand also the power of music and that music carries theology. So, for example, Angela Wimbush, lay your burdens down. The valley is not where God abandons us. Sometimes the valley is where we learn to really rest our burdens and keep walking. So, the leadership concept here is what I call soft power. It's leadership not dependent on spectacle, it's leadership that builds when outcomes are uncertain. And sometimes the valley is not where purpose disappears. Sometimes the valley is exactly where purpose becomes even clearer. And as I close, if you find yourself in a valley season, this may not mean that something is wrong. It may mean that your leadership has to shift. There's a place where you're being led. And again, you'll get inklings, you'll get hunches, you'll get the umption, right? To create, to move, to reimagine, to reorient yourself. Leadership, again, does not solely exist on the mountaintop. It cannot hold people through difficult times if we think solely that way. Leadership is formed in the valley. It knows how to keep building, even when outcomes are still unfolding. So, as I close, think about your own season and where you are now. If you feel like you're even in a mountaintop, think about the lessons that you learned in the valley to help you move through the mountaintop. And I want to invite you this week to share those lessons with someone, because one of the key components to what I have witnessed to be really effective leadership is the power of vulnerability and truth telling. I'm not saying that you have to disclose every single thing, but radical vulnerability, the ability to say that I don't know. And also, every strong leader has a strong, capable, smart team, maybe even smarter than them, team around them that they trust. Because trust, vulnerability, communal sharing, and gathering are so vital in the leadership that we need for this emerging world. So, where in your life right now are you being formed in process rather than rewarded with outcomes? I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. But in the meantime, I am Ber-Henda Williams. I'm a womanist strategist and convener. I'm the creator of Culture Shifters Unite, the podcast Soul of a Lead Her for she who lives and works from the soul, and the Ber-Henda Williams Show. I hope that this week's insights touched you, and please share them, share this video, follow me on Substack for more, and I'll see you all soon. Have a beautiful rest of your day, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Bye for now.